Is radio advertising expensive? It might be, maybe, depending on where you are, how much you have to spend, and what you want to achieve. But there's a lot to consider, that's for sure. And we're going to go over some of those factors and help you balance it out and help you write a much better ad as well, if this is what you want to do with it. So let's get started. By the end of this video, you're going to know a lot more about radio advertising rates, how radio stations set their rates, and it might make a little sense, or it might make you think, man, those guys have lost their minds. It could go any direction, quite frankly. It seems a little scattered, but you'll understand a little bit, I hope. Let's dive in. Some of the considerations that go into pricing, first of all, when it comes to radio advertising, is what size market are you in? Are you in a very large market like LA, New York, Chicago, Atlanta? Or are you in, say, a much smaller market like either Clarksville, Tennessee, or Springville, Alabama, or maybe even Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania? Any one of those places, it's going to be a very different rate card when you're talking about, say, a county with 150,000 people versus a couple city blocks that have 150,000 people. Big difference. Why is that? Mainly because the number of ears you're reaching. There are a bunch of people that are going to be listening to that radio station, and the more people that there are listening, that's part of what drives the price up. Part of what drives the price up. Not completely and totally, but it's a lot like TV advertising, quite frankly. You know, if everybody's watching that one show, that one big hit show on Wednesday night, that comedy or that drama is going to be charging a lot more for advertising than, say, the show on Friday night when everybody goes out and not too many people watch TV. They're going to charge a lot less on Friday night. But radio is pretty much the same way. The more popular it is, the more ears you have listening, the higher the prices are going to be, based on the size of the market to begin with. So you see how those two are now starting to interplay and affect each other? But wait, there's even more to this formula. What kind of a format are we talking about here? You know, the general population of anything, whether it be New York City or, say, a small county of 150,000 people total, and that covers like 5 or 6 towns, let's say you're still looking at a bell curve no matter what. And that big section right there in the middle is what's going to be your most popular formats. Your fringe formats, well, not too many people are listening. For example, something like sports talk or business radio. Those are very rare formats, and not a lot of people are going to be listening to those. So if you've got a population of only 150,000, there's even fewer than a little that could be listening to that station. Whereas something like 2 to 3 million, 5 million, 7 million in the market, you're probably going to have a couple 100,000 that are going to be easily listening to either a sports talk or a business talk or a political talk or some type of format like that. The most popular is going to be the popular music of the day, whether it be top 40 or country music or hip hop, whatever the case may be. Whatever's the top music of the day, that's going to have your vast majority of listeners, of course. So format has a lot to do with it in the population of the market. See how they're all starting to blend together here? There's more. What part of the day part are we talking about? And what we mean by day parts is, how does the radio station divide up the day? You've basically got 5 or 6 chunks of time, depending on how they do it. But most likely it's going to be morning drive, middays, an afternoon drive, and then you'll have evenings and overnights. Those are the most common divisions right there. Sometimes they'll make that overnight a little bit shorter, so you have 3 in the overnight. Sometimes they'll just combine it and just make it one person from, say, 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. the next day. It's probably recorded, but you didn't hear that from me. What day part? The most listened to day part is going to be morning drive. Second is going to be afternoon drive. Third is going to be middays, and then you've got evenings, and then overnights. Those are going to be the least listened to. Chances are you're going to find the most expensive ads during the morning drive on the most popular station in the big market with the hot format. You see how this stack is getting higher and higher? Let's keep going. There's more. And finally, one other consideration. Every once in a while you can find this, 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, that those ads are going to be recorded ads. Smaller to medium markets, you're probably going to have the jocks, the air staff, are going to be the ones cutting those ads. You'll have a few people, say in the sales department, maybe in the production or traffic department, that have the voice and the chops to be able to do a radio ad, at least read one. You'll have specialized people, the production directors or creative service directors, who are going to be writing them and maybe editing them. But for the talent-wise, if you wanted, say, the morning show host, the very popular morning show host, to do a live ad as an endorsement, that's probably going to be the most expensive ad there is. Now, you might, in a small to medium-sized market, get the morning show host on a recorded ad, but maybe it's not an endorsement. Maybe they're not identifying themselves. Maybe they're not saying, hey, I love this product, you need to get it too. That would be an endorsement if they said, yes, I use this product. If it's just a voice on the commercial, then no, you're not supposed to take it as the morning show host, because like I said, small to medium-sized markets, you have very limited air staff. But the folks who do end up being a live endorsement, that's going to be a very expensive ad, especially for the morning show. Typically you find it on a morning and afternoon drive, maybe during the middays. Did that help, or now are you completely and totally confused? I don't blame you. There's a lot to it, and it seems like this weird alchemy on coming up with prices. But when it comes to radio advertising, we cover that stuff here. Hopefully after 2 or 3 times, different angles and stuff like that, we cover all kinds of radio advertising aspects. It'll start to make sense. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, make sure you don't miss anything, and then it'll all start to make sense, okay? All right, let's keep going. Now, when it comes to your radio advertising, one of the best pieces of advice I can give you is you can either slow down or speed up, but please, for the sake of your brand, for the sake of your store, do not stop. Once you begin your advertising, don't stop. It's a lot like pushing a car. You're on the side of the road, your car's dead, you got to push it. That first shove is going to take all of your strength and all of your might, and you might move an inch, right? But the more you keep pushing and shoving, it starts to build a little bit of momentum, and before you know it, the car is basically kind of running on its own, and you just got to keep your hand on the back bumper to keep it moving. Very little effort now. You want to find that sweet spot, let's say between sales or throughout the course of the year, or maybe during the ebb and flow of your selling season. You want to be able to still maintain that top of mind awareness and familiarity from the client, from the listeners, because they're going to get to know you. They're going to find you as a regular on the radio. And then if you all of a sudden disappear, you would be surprised how quickly your business will get erased from their memory, and you're almost like starting from scratch all over again. You don't want to do that to yourself. You don't want to have to keep going to that first initial shove again and again and again. Now, you don't have to cancel completely, but you don't have to sustain it either. You can just keep it simmering with a very low, slow campaign, just to keep reminding the listeners of who you are and what you do. That's a great way to sustain long-term growth with radio advertising. When you're writing your ads, you also want to cover it more from an emotional perspective than a logical perspective. I will be the first to admit that I bought a car one time because it looked really good in my driveway. But I told everybody that I bought several cars from the dealership. They knocked off a couple thousand. The interest rate was great, blah, 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 blah. I didn't even need a down payment because they knew me. So all that stuff is the logical side. That's fine. That's how we talk to our friends and tell them what a great deal we got. But to actually buy, you want to speak to the emotional side. How they're frustrated now and, oh, they're going to be so happy once it's done. The happy, the frustrated, the angry, the sick and tired of whatever, the embarrassment of. Be sure to hit all those emotions, and that's going to make up for a much stronger commercial. Something similar to that, and I'm sure you've heard this one before, features versus benefits. Features are the actual physical properties of, say, the product that you're selling. Rack and pinion steering, okay? Very common. Okay, fine. there were, God, I'll never forget, like back during the 70s and 80s, I remember seeing car commercials talking about, and it's got rack and pinion steering, right? Isn't that great? No, nobody knew what rack and pinion steering was, and especially when it comes to like soccer moms or something like that just got to get their kids from point A to point B. What does that mean? That would be the feature, the rack and pinion steering would be the feature. The benefit is for extra control and handling in the turns. That's what it does. That's the benefit. Be sure to put the emphasis on the benefit, not the feature. You can mention the feature, but put the spotlight on the benefit. Something that they can relate to, something that will help their life. And finally, the absolute most wonderful thing about radio advertising, and you need to do this to the nth degree. The most important part is what we like to call theater of the mind. What we mean by that is giving enough of a description that the listener will fill in the blanks and come up with their own imagery. For example, let's say with a TV commercial, there is no theater of the mind. There's the image right there. Let's say they wanted to do like 1,000 dancing camels in a commercial. Okay? Whatever it is. Fine. 1,000 dancing camels. They're going to have to shoot the camel. No, they're going to have to film the camel. Maybe one camel and do the rest CGI, or maybe they'll have a bunch of camels and they'll have to, then you'll need a film crew, you'll need a lunch crew to film to feed the film crew, you'll need wranglers for the camels, blah, 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 blah. I mean, this could go tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars just to do, you know, the 1,000 dancing camel concept. Now, for a radio ad, what you can do for 1,000 dancing camels, I just did it. Now you're picturing 1,000 dancing camels. Now, here's the cool thing. Are they dressed like a genie and doing a belly dance? Are they dressed in, say, grass skirts and doing a hula? Are they dressed in tuxedos and doing a formal waltz? That's where your mind takes over. And you get to fill in the blank and do whatever you want so you can relate to that ad. But me, all I have to do as the advertiser is say 1,000 dancing camels, and you're already on board. That's the beauty of theater of the mind. There's a little bit of a fudge factor so your listener can be involved, but there's just enough description up front to get them to start to picture it. That's the beauty of theater of the mind. To get you started in the right direction, I've got an even more detailed document. I call it the radio advertising checklist. It's more like an ebook, okay? It's several pages. It walks you through this entire brainstorming process, and then it takes all the stuff from the brainstorming and shows you how to turn it into a functional radio copy to turn it into a commercial. Get a copy of it for yourself. Click in the description down below. There's a link. Click on that link down below and be sure to get your copy right now. The Radio Advertising Checklist. Get your copy. I'm Nick Natarella with AdWise Creative. Thank you for watching.